Hey folks, it's Chris. I don't normally do this, but I just saw a terrible movie and I wanted to rant about it. I've got a YouTube channel, so why not? It may get no views, but I can share it to, at least a few dozen friends. So I'm going to do it. There's nothing polished about this. I do have a few notes because there's a lot that I want to say about it. I don't want to forget, and this is a very forgettable movie. If I had not taken notes, I think I would have forgotten most of this movie an hour later. I've seen all the other Transformers movies, and they are very hard to remember. There is a specific reason for that. Michael Bay has some talents in some areas. He can make things look cool. He can stage some good set pieces. I'm not going to say he's a great action director, but he used to do some good stuff. I think that The Rock is a fairly fun movie. I enjoy most of the first Transformers movie. I do not hate Transformers. I grew up with the toys. I loved the cartoon. It's not great, but I love this stuff. So I've got a tremendous amount of nostalgia. It keeps bringing me to these movies. I have hated every one of these movies from 2 through now 5. Terrible movies. Transformers The Last Knight. What is it about? It is about 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that, which is at least an hour longer than it needs to be. Because when you boil it down to the central story, it is the same exact story as Transformers 3. In that movie, a person from Cybertron betrayed the Autobots and was trying to bring Cybertron to Earth. And at the very end of this movie, you finally realize that that's pretty much the exact same thing happening again. It's just mind-boggling that they would recycle it so blatantly. But this movie actually cribs a lot from the previous movies. I don't think director Michael Bay really cares anymore. Some other non-spoiler thoughts about it. I have realized that Michael Bay's movies are very hard to remember. And it's because there's just too much going on at once with no break. Even a simple dialogue scene, just 2 or more characters having a conversation. At some point you have to get to that in any movie. You just have people talking. And a lot of times this is just, shot, reverse shot. Nothing fancy, although you may highlight the mood with lighting, with music, etc. There's all sorts of ways to do this. Michael Bay, every single shot is different. So the character might be like over here, cut to the other person talking. The next time, he's up there, like looking down at you. It's always a different shot. So your eye is constantly moving around the screen. If you've ever seen the movie Mad Max Fury Road, that has a lot of action going on. But they tend to keep it centered somewhere in the center of the frame. It moves a little, but the important stuff is always in the middle. That's not what Michael Bay does. Every shot, explosions going off here. The guy's up here jumping off the building. Now there's a robot down here transforming. Yeah, right. Honestly, there's hardly any transforming in this. There are scenes where the Autobots need to get across a large empty field. More than once. Sometimes they're running from a threat, but they're always running. They rarely transform into vehicles. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Who are the main characters in the story? Absolutely not any of the Transformers. The main one is Mark Wahlberg. He plays Cade Yeager, an inventor, or really former inventor. He doesn't invent anything in this movie. He at least sort of did in the last one. And he's just an ally of the Transformers. He's the main character. He doesn't really go through any big changes. He's just the main guy. There's a British lady that's a historian. She gets roped into the proceedings. Who else is in this that's important? There's a young girl, maybe 13 or 14, who Cade befriends in the opening scene of the movie. She'll disappear for 40 minutes at a time in this movie, and you're like, oh, okay, they told her part of it. And then she pops back up, and you're like, oh, I guess she's still part of this movie. It's so inconsistent. Anthony Hopkins is obviously in this movie. He's just exposition man. He is purely there to add some new mythology to Transformers. Here's the problem. None of these Transformers movies ever seemed to plan ahead for the next movie. So every time a writer comes in and creates some mythology about the Transformers, it's bolted on to a very loose structure. Nothing that they've built before was ever intended to get this far. At least that's what I believe. You may have a different opinion, your mileage may vary. I guess you could sort of argue that Bumblebee is maybe 5th or 6th most important character in this. He's around a fair amount. He's around the most out of all the Transformers. Optimus Prime, not in this movie a lot until the end. Megatron, not the threat in this movie. He's around, but he's not the big threat. None of his minions are important at all. There's nobody like a Soundwave or a Starscream, a memorable character. There's nobody like that. And he's not the big bad. Who else? There's a lot of Autobots actually. But again, like that girl, they'll just disappear for an hour or so, and I'm like, I don't know if they're supposed to be dead or they just didn't come along or what. They just disappear. And then sometimes some of them will come back. It's confusing, it's cacophonous, it's chaotic. It is not a good movie. It really is not. I went into Saw 7 with more pride than I went into this movie. I was so embarrassed to be seeing this. Thank God I had a friend who was also semi-interested in seeing this and invited me, because I couldn't see this by myself. So why am I saying thank God? I should never have seen this. I should never have seen this. I do not recommend seeing this. Even if you want a bad movie experience that's funny, the only way this will be fun for you is if you go with some other friends. Honestly, or if you're buzzed. I'm not recommending that you drink or anything, but if you're buzzed, you just may be like, wow, this is impossible to keep straight. Well, yeah, you can be completely sober and you wouldn't get it any better. So you might as well just sort of enjoy it as colors flashing across the screen, sound, noise. You know what? From here on, I'm going to go into spoiler territory. I have nothing else to say about the movie in general. It's not good. Spoilers here on out. I'm going to my notes for this. The mythology is all based on references to previous Transformers things. The cartoon, the comic books, the toys, but it's all lip service because it's all different. It's just names. It is just names. So if you are a hardcore fan, you may hear a term and be like, oh, I like that thing. But really think about what you're seeing. It's different, and you know what? Different is fine. But it's worse in this instance. It's worse, I promise. For instance, this movie has Unicron. Unicron was the big bad in the 1986 animated movie. He's been in various comic books. He was eventually made into a toy. He is kind of almost a god of evil. Terrifying, right? So Unicron is in this movie. Guess what? He's not a bad guy at all. In this movie, that's what Transformers secretly call Earth. Earth is Unicron. And that's all there is to it. It's not sentient or anything. I don't think. They never imply that it can transform or anything like that. It's just the name they have for Earth. Earth is Unicron. What else? Okay. In the cartoon mythology and most of the comic books, the Transformers were created by a race of aliens called Quintessons. That's who supposedly built the Transformers. In this movie, Optimus Prime gets back to his home planet of Cybertron and instantly bumps into a lady called Quintessa. And apparently she created the Transformers. And if she touches them, they have to obey. She touches Optimus Prime, he is mind controlled. But then at the very end of this movie, there's sort of, what would you call it? Like, it's before the credits, but it's sort of an after credits. It's an after movie tag scene. She can turn into a human being. It's sort of implied that she used to be human. It very much seems to imply that humans may have actually invented the Transformers. Weird. Just so weird. What else? Oh, Nemesis Prime. Nemesis Prime was a really cool concept, mostly explored in Japanese media, of an evil clone of Optimus Prime. Dark black colors, but the same toy, you know? Nemesis Prime is a cool idea. He's Optimus Prime's equal, but a dark reflection. In this, Quintessa touches Optimus Prime's face, it gets a red streak, and she calls him Nemesis Prime once. But he gets better eventually. Also, Megatron has a red streak on his face, but he never leaves Earth, so I have no idea how Quintessa ever took control of him. But he has a red streak on his face, and he also seems to obey her. I don't know. There's no explanation that makes sense there. What else? Hot Rod is in it. It's nowhere close to any version of Hot Rod you've seen before. This guy is just a sports car that talks in a French accent. He's a minor supporting character. That's it. Hot Rod. Hot Rod usually is a pretty important character. He's not important in this. He's just another robot. Let's see. There's a lot of new mythology that contradicts the previous movies or rips them off. So even if you like just the movies, this movie, The Last Knight, will probably annoy you. Cybertron comes to Earth just like in Part 3. In Part 3, Sentinel Prime uses some sort of magical pillars to bring Cybertron to Earth and destroy it, I think, to end the war or enslave humanity. It was something like that. In this one, Quintessa just drives Cybertron to Earth, and they're going to suck the energy out of Earth to rebuild Cybertron. Even though nobody else lives there anymore. It's a broken, ruined world. Nobody lives there. Who cares, right? I don't know. There are some knight Transformers, some Transformers that look like old medieval knights. They act like complete assholes to everybody. They fight the Autobots towards the end, and I think Bumblebee even kills one of them, even though in a flashback, they're good guys that helped King Arthur, as in the medieval King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. He had Transformers on his side. We'll get more into that in a bit. But yeah, these knights are complete assholes. But guess what? That was what happened in number 4, wasn't it? The Dinobots were all knights, and Optimus Prime beat them up, and they decided to obey. Well, these knights also transform into sort of a monster. I mean, not a dinosaur. They turn into one dragon. They all combine into a 3-headed dragon. It's King Ghidorah from Godzilla. That's all. That's exactly what it is. It's nothing else. And they're assholes, and they don't have personalities. They're all just one group. They're terrible. Cade Yeager is selected to be the last knight. He picks up a medieval coin from one of those knights towards the beginning of the movie. What does that mean? What does that mean? All that means is eventually that metal medallion all of a sudden becomes a sword during one scene. He's able to stop evil Optimus Prime from slicing Bumblebee's head off. Then it just goes away. That's all it is. It's such a disappointment. They build this up throughout the movie. He's got this medallion. It won't let him go. It's selected him because he's pure and he has all these good qualities. I don't know who programmed it or how it works. It just turns into a sword once, and then it's gone. What else? Oh my God. So Anthony Hopkins reveals the Transformers have been here throughout human history, helping us achieve basically everything. It's one of those stories where we didn't achieve anything as humanity. The Transformers did it all for us. I think that the pyramids were built by them. They say that the Transformers helped Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Edison, I think Einstein. I know for a fact that I saw on their wall of people that Transformers had helped Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, as in the Transformers ran the Underground Railroad. The Transformers, by the way, seem especially interested in American history. They're all over the place helping Americans throughout the past. This just does not fit with the previous mythology where they showed up for the first time, in modern era, except for Megatron. And then they started layering in, no, there was one or two other Transformers here or there, and this is so confusing. It's just like, no, Transformers have always been here. Bumblebee literally fought for the Allies in World War II, and then I guess left. A Transformer that can turn into a clock killed Hitler. It's terrible. That makes it sound like we, humanity, have accomplished nothing. Transformers have just been here doing everything for us. What else? There are just some dumb things. I'm almost done, but with my notes. Bear with me. You're going to want to hear some of this. There's a scene where Megatron negotiates with lawyers to get various Decepticons free. Yeah, just a bunch of lawyers set up tables in the desert, and I don't know if you remember Josh Duhamel. I don't remember his character's name, but he was in the first 3 movies as a military guy. He's there, and he just sort of arranges these lawyers, and Megatron's like, I want this bad guy, and they cut to a clip of that guy locked up in jail, and the lawyers go like yes or no. But Megatron doesn't just kill them all, take them hostage. He just keeps going like, I want this guy to be free. And they're like, nah, he's too dangerous. Megatron's like, grrr, okay. How about this guy instead? What? Okay, in the beginning of the movie, it sets up this idea that certain parts of cities are considered demilitarized zones. There's a new military group called the TRF, I think I have that right, and they're portrayed as complete assholes. They have robots that look like Ed 209 from RoboCop running around, killing Autobots that are trying to just hide. Some preteen kids explore into one of these demilitarized zones, and this evil group of military people led by a certain guy who I don't know if he ever even got a name, but he keeps showing up throughout the movie as a complete asshole. He shoots missiles to kill a Transformer even though he knows that there are kids right next to him. So you think, oh, this is a bad guy, right? Well, he later tries to kill Cade Yeager, Mark Wahlberg's character. He tries to murder him, and then at the very end of the movie, he and Josh Duhamel are on the same team, and they team up with Cade, and they fight on the side of the Autobots, which basically just amounts to them shooting rifles at robots, and it's completely ineffective. He never gets a comeuppance or like a talking to or anything. He tries to kill 2 of the main characters, that young girl and Marky Mark, and then at the end he just teams up with them. It's like, all the good guys are unlikable assholes. That's something I've hated in all of these movies. The Autobots fight with each other a lot. They do that in this. They're just beating each other up and calling each other stupid and saying they hate each other. I guess they just hate bad guys more. They're very unlikable. I said Josh Duhamel is back. He has no character or arc. All he does is tag along with the military. He is there. He never really advocates especially for Optimus Prime or negotiates with them. He negotiates with Megatron, but he never really does much to help the Autobots. Some hero. I'd consider him pretty low on the characters that are important. Oh, and those apocalyptic war zones in the city that I just mentioned a moment ago, that idea is never explored again. Like, Cade Yeager shows up, grabs that girl, they leave, and every other city seems fine. Seems absolutely fine. So I don't know what was going on there. There is I don't know what to call it. There's a butler Transformer. He's sort of a steampunk Transformer, except he doesn't transform. He's just a robot butler. There is a robot butler It's voiced by, I want to say his name is Jim, what's his name? In Downton Abbey, the guy that was the head butler. I love that show, but I haven't watched it in a while, so I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head. It's actually a good voice. He's frequently funny, but sometimes he's just absolutely psychotic. Every once in a while, he just tries to beat up Cade, or you see him just like slamming fish dead to cook some sushi on the spot. He's sort of portrayed as a ninja too. He's tiny. They say he's tiny. They say, oh, that guy looks like a leprechaun. And I guess he's supposed to be 4 feet tall. You can never really tell that he's short though, because all these Transformers are just CGI creations that float around. Who knows how short they are. Cade has hired some guy, I don't know that character's name either, he's hired some guy to work at his junkyard where he secretly hides all the Autobots. This guy happens to be black, and he constantly just goes like, oh, I'm scared I'm going to go to jail. I'm scared I'm going to go to jail. They never mention that he has a criminal past or anything. In fact, he's kind of dorky. He's lanky, he's got glasses, and he tags along the whole way, doesn't really do anything. He's just constantly like, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to go to jail. I don't know. I mean, that's not exactly racist, but it's not very sensitive either. I will say there are still tons of Transformers that for no reason at all speak in this weird, stereotypical, like urban sort of accent. It's so strange. Like tons of them. There's got to be like 5 to 10 Transformers that talk like a sort of a stereotype. It's worse than those two twins in the second movie. It really is. There's a bunch of them this time. The weirdest thing. Okay. So a big part of this mythology is that back during King Arthur's time, Merlin existed. And Merlin was given a staff, I guess, by the Knight Autobots, and only his bloodline could activate it. And I guess that could sort of somehow turn off Cybertron, I guess? Something like that, so that Cybertron couldn't suck Earth dry. And so Anthony Hopkins plays this guy who has been secretly hiding all the knowledge about Transformers through the ages, and he knows about it. And he recruits this British historian lady. You know, he kidnaps her, basically. He has Hot Rod kidnap her. And she's the descendant of Merlin. But here's where it gets weird. At first, you're just told that it's going to be a descendant of Merlin. Merlin is played by actor Stanley Tucci. He played a modern-day business guy in Part 4. So you're thinking, oh, Stanley Tucci is going to show back up as this character. He's the descendant of Merlin. No, he just plays Merlin. He plays a completely different character. He does not show up in the modern day. That's confusing because of who the actor that they chose for this is. Then we're told that the descendant's name is Witwicken, or at least was at some point in history. Witwicken. Oh, are they going to somehow have a cameo by Shia LaBeouf's Sam Witwicky? No, because Anthony Hopkins says that this woman is the last descendant, which I guess implies that that character died off screen at some point. That's depressing. He's dead. Well, but then it might not be true in a way, because now that I'm thinking about it, that British historian lady did have a mother and several aunts in an earlier scene. Maybe she was adopted or something weird like that, because like, why couldn't the mother hold the staff? Only this lady can hold the staff. So that means two characters in this have some sort of destiny to be able to hold something special. There's Cade Yeager has this mystical medallion, and he turns out to be the last knight, and this lady turns out to be the only one that can hold a staff. It's so confusing, and it just slows the whole story down, to be honest. What else? The Transformers, as always, are really hard to tell apart. The Decepticons especially, they're just gray. You can't tell any of them apart. It's a nightmare. The Autobots, at least sort of, some of them have big, bold primary colors, but as soon as they start fighting, it looks like I took all the silverware in my drawer and dumped it down the stairs. It makes no sense. Bumblebee. In the first movie, Bumblebee's voice box was broken, so he could only talk by playing radio clips. At the end of that movie, if you remember, Ratchet fixed his voice box and he said a couple words like, "I want to stay with Sam." But then in movies 2 through 4, for some reason he kept talking with the radio. Well, in this movie, they specifically say that his voice box has always been broken. Oh, okay, like Kate is trying to fix it, doesn't work, whatever. Towards the end of the movie, Optimus Prime is about to kill Bumblebee, and Bumblebee all of a sudden just talks. He just goes like, "You are my oldest friend," and Optimus Prime's like, "Oh, Bumblebee." And then Bumblebee goes right back to only being able to play clips. I don't know where that came from. Cade never fixed it or anything. They had to find a module to plug in, and Bumblebee, when it didn't work at the beginning, he just rips it out, and he doesn't have a voice box. And Optimus Prime goes, "Oh, I haven't heard you speak in so long. Like it's been ages and ages." I'm like, it's been since the first movie. He talked at the end of the first movie. I guess they forgot. They really might have forgotten that. Prime ends the movie like every single one of these. He just says like, "To those who are listening, Earth is now a good place with noble creatures, and if you can hear this, come and visit." It's like, who gave this guy permission to just invite everybody over? This is like somebody that crashes a house party and then just calls up all their friends. "Autobots, if you can hear me, come on over to Earth, it's fine." It's not fine. There's always humans trying to kill them ever since like 4 and 5. And also, Earth as Unicron does not have the ability to eat or anything, but it does have horns. Not 2 horns like in the animated movie. It has 6. And at the end of the movie, the good guys are able to go like, "Oh, but when Earth was Pangea, the 6 horns were here, and right in the middle is Stonehenge, and that's the only place the staff can work." All right. Anthony Hopkins, the first time we meet him, he's completely senile. He also has a senile tank transformer that just disappears. After that initial scene, he never seems senile again, but he's very clearly portrayed as being senile at first. It's so bizarre. There's so much more bizarre stuff, but basically it's just all subplots that don't go anywhere. It's like I say, like, there's Quintessa that apparently has control of Megatron and Optimus Prime, and it's more important that she has control of Optimus Prime for some reason, and she wants to suck the energy out of Earth. But we only learn that something like 2 hours into the movie. 2 hours. Up until then, the Autobots are being chased by the military, by that TRF force. The Autobots are fighting amongst each other. The Autobots are fighting those ancient knight Transformers. They're like all fighting each other, and it's pointless. It doesn't go anywhere. All right, now I'm just droning. I really am. You know what? There's nothing more I can say. I mean, there is more I can say. There's other dumb stuff I could say, but it's not going to change anything. This movie is insane. You're not going to enjoy it. That's all I got to say. Take care.